The book of Joshua tells us that Israel wiped out every Canaanite in the land, and yet the very same book tells us about Canaanites living inside Israel. So which is it? The conquest narrative says total destruction, but Rahab is spared, the Gibeonites make a treaty, and the Joshua's farewell warns against intermarriage with nations supposedly already gone. The answer lies not in the Bronze Age, but in a crisis centuries later, the Babylonian exile. To understand this contradiction, we need to look at two kinds of stories the book of Joshua preserves side by side. Start with a woman named Rahab. Rahab is a Canaanite prostitute living in Jericho. She declares faith in Yahweh, hides the Israelite spies, and when Jericho falls, she and her family are spared. She's not destroyed. She's absorbed into Israel. Then there are the Gibeonites, a Canaanite group that tricks Israel into a binding covenant by pretending to be from a distant land. Once the oath is made, Israel honors it. The Gibeonites remain within Israel permanently. Both stories do something remarkable. They undermine the total conquest narrative from within the text itself. These are what scholars call etiological tales, stories that explain the origin of a present reality. In this case, they explain why Canaanite groups lived within Israel despite the conquest ideology. This tension is not sloppy editing. The editors preserved these stories because they served a real social function. As Michael Coogan observes, they subtly subvert the conquest narrative from inside the very book that promotes it. Now turn to Joshua's farewell. In chapter 23, Joshua commands Israel, "Do not utter the names of their gods, but hold fast to the Lord your God." Verses 11 through 13 deliver the warning: if you intermarry with the remaining nations, God will stop driving them out. These nations will become, quote, a snare and a trap. Chapter 24 escalates. At Shechem, Joshua recounts God's mighty deeds and issues the famous challenge, "Choose this day whom you will serve." The people pledge loyalty. God demands exclusive devotion and will not tolerate alien gods. Notice something critical. The intermarriage ban targets Canaanites specifically, not all foreigners. The logic is religious proximity. Marrying those closest geographically and culturally risks adopting their worship practices. But here's the deeper question. Who needed to hear these warnings and when? Enter the Deuteronomistic History. This is the editorial tradition rooted in the theology of Deuteronomy that shaped the books from Joshua through 2 Kings into a single coherent narrative. The final editing occurred during the Babylonian exile in the 6th century BCE. Picture the context. By 586 BCE, Israel has lost everything: its land, its temple, its monarchy. The burning question is, why did this happen? The Deuteronomistic editors provide a theological answer. Israel failed to maintain exclusive loyalty to Yahweh, exactly as Joshua warned. They shaped these earlier traditions into a retrospective framework, reading the past through the lens of a later crisis. Joshua's warnings become the prologue to disaster. When readers reach 2 Kings and the fall of Jerusalem, the logic is already in place. This is not a historical transcript of what Joshua said. It is editors writing after the catastrophe, shaping earlier traditions to explain the present. The text speaks to two audiences at once, the characters in the story and the exilic community reading it. Joshua addresses the Israelites at Shechem. The Deuteronomistic editors address Judeans in Babylon. Both audiences face the same question: will you remain loyal? One common misreading deserves attention. Modern readers sometimes interpret the intermarriage ban as ethnic or racial purity. The text's concern is religious contamination. Marrying a Canaanite leads to worshipping Canaanite gods. The category is theological loyalty, not ethnicity. Consider Ruth the Moabite, celebrated elsewhere in the Bible precisely because she adopts Yahweh worship. She declares to her Israelite mother-in-law, "Your people shall be my people and your God my God." Ruth is foreign by birth but Israelite by faith. The boundary the text draws is worship, not blood. This gives us a powerful tool for reading not just Joshua, but the entire Deuteronomistic history. The principle, when reading biblical texts, always ask who is the audience behind the audience. Take the most famous line, choose this day whom you will serve. On the surface, Joshua speaks to Israelites at Shechem around the 12th century BCE. They stand surrounded by Canaanite shrines, choosing Yahweh over local gods. Now read it through the eyes of a 6th century Judean in Babylon, surrounded by Babylonian gods, wondering whether Yahweh has abandoned them. The same words carry entirely different weight. The book of Joshua contains its own counter-narratives. Rahab and the Gibeonites subvert the conquest from within. Joshua's farewell speeches encode a theology of conditional loyalty shaped by editors who already knew the ending. Reading this book critically means holding both the surface story and the editorial lens in view at the same time. The conquest narrative, the etiological tales, and the Deuteronomistic framework are not contradictions to resolve. They are layers to read together. Each layer reveals a different community, a different crisis, and a different answer to the question that drives the entire history. What does it cost to forget your God?